Welcome for the first time this year to my favorite place in the world, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, on what is an absolutely perfect day, unseasonably warm, 60 degrees for February and sunny. The only problem is a bit of wind, but we'll take that. It's a pretty nice warm breeze. And we're here for a very special reason. The first time this year for my channel, talking about the announcement today that Tony Kanaan will indeed retire as an IndyCar driver when the checkered flag falls for the 2023 edition of the race. 10 years to the day of his one and only to date Indianapolis 500 win. Here's a few thoughts from Tony during the press conference today.
You're never ready for this. But you gotta weigh your options. You know, I went from a full-time to a part-time, and I was, you're 48, you had a great career. You as much as you don't want to go, it's there.
Yeah.
And if you're smart, you make the right decisions at the right time. I came to this sport to win everything I could and to do the best I could. I would hate to be coming to this place just to participate.
Yeah.
So you weigh your opportunities, and last year was a really good one.
Yeah.
And when I finished that race, I was ready, if nothing because it was a 2-year deal that I had announced my retirement 2 years before. And the question was asked, do you think you can do it again? I think I can do it again for 10 more years, the way I take care of myself, but that's not the point. Am I gonna get the chance to do it at the right place again, to win it? Then Zach called, and I look at the results. The two teams that dominated was the one that I was in, and the one that I was calling.
Yeah.
So you can't refuse that. And no, I'm not ready, but it's not a sad story. It's a really cool one. It's nice to see how many people appreciate, which I kind of get surprised. You never think about how you set examples. You said you have your 15-year-old kid saying that, you're proud of you, and the story, and you can inspire so many people and the fans, and what IndyCar made me. I'm an IndyCar driver, and I always will be.
And because this is such a historic milestone, you really think about it, Tony Kanaan, I would say, is right up there with the true legends of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is as significant a retirement as, I would say, an A.J. Foyt. He, in a lot of ways, he is the A.J. Foyt of our generation, though he doesn't have the wins. I think he's got the popularity. I think the fans, still so heavily support Tony Kanaan. And he also shares the aspect of with AJ that the retirement took a couple of years to actually become official. But I think anytime Tony Kanaan's actually in the Indianapolis 500, the field is better for it. And I think he's going to be very competitive. We'll talk a little bit about his Aero McLaren SP ride here in a little bit. But I just wanted to reflect a little bit on Tony Kanaan's career, because I look at 5 moments of his career that I really wanted to touch on. The first one I actually got to ask him about in the press conference was his first win, which is kind of ironic that his first, and regardless of how the Indianapolis 500 goes this May, his last wins came at 500-mile race distances. And of course, when he was driving for Steve Horn and Jerry Forsythe in the McDonald's car, it was an unbelievable win, passing Max Papis as Papis ran out of fuel, and then narrowly holding off Juan Pablo Montoya for the victory. And little did we know it was going to be the first of many for Tony Kanaan. We go to 2010 here at Indianapolis, and I think that was really one of the great moments where Tony Kanaan endeared himself to the fans here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. He had 2 crashes in practice trying to qualify for the race. He finally put a backup car in the field on the last row, and then in the race drove from that back row all the way up to second. The fans were absolutely going crazy, and his tenacity and his lack of complaints, getting down to business and putting the car in the show and then going out and racing like we all knew he could in that race, I think was the moment that the fans really became Tony Kanaan fans here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Another great moment I think from Tony Kanaan's perspective, and one that I don't think a lot of people think about or talk about very much, but it was that 2018 Indianapolis 500 when everyone came here with the same body kit. AJ Foyt Racing, as we know, has not exactly been super competitive, especially at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and yet Tony Kanaan, in my opinion, was the fastest driver, the fastest car on that day. It was only a flat tire that kept him out of Indianapolis 500 victory lane for AJ Foyt for a second time, and you look at the level of competitiveness that Tony brought to that team after being in the best ride at Chip Ganassi the year before, coming to AJ Foyt and extracting that same performance from that car, I think was absolutely mega. And then you look at 2004, just that entire season. He completed every single lap. One of the greatest and most consistent championship performances in IndyCar history. I don't think he ever finished outside of the top 10, obviously scored a couple of wins. To me, that's just a virtuoso performance. I mean, you think of all the great drivers in IndyCar racing, and a lot of it has to do with equipment, but AJ Foyt never did that. Mario Andretti never did that. Scott Dixon has never done that, never had that level of success, but Tony Kanaan did. So I think that's absolutely exceptional. And then we, of course, go to 2013, the Indianapolis 500 that he finally won for Jimmy Vasser and Kevin Kalkoven. And he did it in the Tony Kanaan way. A restart was what determined that race and what made Tony Kanaan an Indianapolis 500 champion. And so we start to look ahead to May of 2023. It's not very far away, believe it or not, as we sit here on the eve of the Daytona 500. I can tell you that as the sun beats down on my face here and I start to feel, I'm starting to feel that energy coming back. We start thinking about the Indianapolis 500. And I think the big story going into this month is really going to have a lot to do with Tony Kanaan. In fact, he's going to be one of the focal points of the month, I think, because it's going to be the battle of the super teams. It's going to be Ganassi versus McLaren. And those two teams have built up such strong driver lineups, some of the strongest driver lineups from two teams we've ever seen. They were the strongest last year. They battled it out at the end of the race. It was 2-2. Several cars fell out of contention from those two teams, but it ultimately came down to Pato O'Ward and Felix Rosenquist versus Marcus Ericsson and Tony Kanaan. Well, now Tony Kanaan's changed teams to Aero McLaren SP. His final event will take place with the team that his hero and one of his mentors, Ayrton Senna, made so famous over on the Formula One side. I think there's a lot of storylines going into this thing. It's very exciting. I'm just tickled to death. I cannot wait for the month of May. This is definitely the best part of the year for sure, and I'm looking forward to covering Tony Kanaan's final, for realsies this time, Indianapolis 500 here on this channel. And it's the road to 100,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I would not be standing here right now if it was not for you. Trust me on that one. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.